No matter how many crimes you've heard of or seen, there are always going to be more out there that will shock and surprise you. And today, we have 10 eccentric crimes from history that will leave you speechless. Remember to subscribe. Starting off this countdown, we have the Doodler. In the late 90s and early 2000s, people around the world were baffled by cryptic messages left behind at crime scenes all over the place. These messages were always written in chalk and would make no sense. The police had no idea what they meant. This continued for years until 2007, when one man was finally caught for these crimes. His name was Nathan Summers, and he had been leaving these messages behind at his crime scenes because he wanted to become famous. He has been dubbed the Doodler, and although he is still out alive, he is serving 4 concurrent life sentences for the murders he committed. Moving on to number 9, we have the Dismembered Lover. In 1970, a young woman named Patricia Hearst was kidnapped by a group known as the Symbionese Liberation Army. They were a very weird group who were heavily into astrology and were basically a cult. They brainwashed her and forced her to call herself by a different name. But she eventually escaped, only to be found with a man who had been arrested for a series of bizarre murders. Even though the police never connected her to those murders, they did end up connecting her to an armed robbery that had taken place. She was convicted of this and sentenced to prison. The crazy thing is that after doing some digging, it was found out that the man she was with at the time of her arrest had dismembered his lovers after killing them, with his last victim being a 19-year-old runaway. Patricia was given a 35-year sentence, but was released after serving 2 years due to good behavior. Coming in at number 8, we have throwing acid. A man named John Harvey was driving home from work in 1992 when he decided to pull over and help someone who was stranded on the side of the road. When he stopped to help, a man inside of a car rolled down the window and threw acid in his face. Because he was blinded by the acid, he started to drive off, but soon crashed into a tree. It turns out that the man who attacked him was not actually broken down and was just trying to throw acid in someone's face. He had gone to medical school for a while, so he knew exactly what kind of acid to throw and where to throw it so it would blind someone. He was later convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to 15 years in prison. Next up, we have couple therapy gone wrong. Isadora Bruno was born with a rare condition. She had a parasitic twin that was attached to her abdomen. This twin had its own arms and legs, but no other organs. It also had its own brain activity, but no face. The two shared one heart and one set of lungs. When she grew up, she decided that she wanted to get rid of her twin, and so she asked her boyfriend for help. He agreed, and together they killed her twin. She then went to the police and told them what had happened, and she was charged with murder. But her boyfriend was not charged since he had acted in self-defense. Her sentence was 2 years in prison, but she was released after serving just 9 months. Coming in at number 6, we have the crazed fan. Gary Ott was obsessed with actress Rebecca Schaeffer. He thought that they were in love, even though they had never met before. He had been stalking her, and in 1989 he broke into her home and shot her to death. Before doing this, he had already been married and divorced 3 times and had been arrested for spousal abuse. He was also arrested for stalking another actress, but was let off with just probation. When he was found guilty for the murder of Rebecca, he was sentenced to 18 years in prison. Next up, we have Cannibal Cafe. In 1981, 3 men robbed a gas station in Florida and were later spotted by a detective. All 3 of them were put into a lineup, but the detective couldn't pick them out. So instead, the next day he went back to the station and saw the same 3 men sitting in their car and eating lunch. He approached them and asked if they would come back to the station to ask them some more questions. While he was talking to them, he noticed that one of them had ground beef in his teeth. After questioning them about this, they told him that they had eaten human flesh from a man they had killed and cannibalized. One of these men was even a former police officer. All 3 were convicted of murder and sentenced to lengthy prison sentences. Moving on to number 4, we have Paint It Gold. In 2005, a wealthy businessman named Barry White was beaten to death by two men who broke into his home. The police had no leads on the case, and it looked like it would go nowhere. But one of the suspects ended up getting caught for a different crime and confessed to that crime while in jail. This other crime was an armed robbery at a Burger King restaurant. And when the police searched his home, they found lots of evidence linking him to the murder of Barry White. His accomplice was later caught as well. Both men were convicted of murder and given life sentences. Next up, we have Killer Clown. In 1988, a man dressed as a clown broke into a home and assaulted a 13-year-old girl. Not only did he assault her, but he kept coming back to the house every night for an entire month to do it again. Eventually, the police caught him. His name was John Wayne Gacy, and he had done something similar in the past, but the statute of limitations had run out by the time he was caught. So he could not be charged for what he had done in the past. But for what he did to the 13-year-old girl, he was charged and pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Coming in at number 2, we have canned meat. In 1969, a family of 5 was found dead in their home. Their cause of death was unknown, and nobody could figure out who had done this to them. In fact, it was one of the biggest mysteries in Australian criminal history. It wasn't until 2009, when a journalist and a forensic scientist revisited the case, that anything new came of it. They discovered that all 5 of them had died from cyanide poisoning. And although they still don't know who did it, they believe it was the mother of one of the sons who was romantically involved with another man. Last up on our list, we have vomit. A man named Thomas Silverstein worked for the U.S. Customs Service. In 1988, he was arrested for taking bribes in order to let certain shipments come into the country. He was fired from his job and indicted on 37 counts of bribery. To make matters worse, he had recently been diagnosed with cancer. While awaiting trial, he became very ill and began throwing up nonstop. He tried everything he could to stop himself from vomiting, but nothing worked, and he ended up dying from dehydration. It turned out that the reason he was vomiting so much was because he had been poisoned by his cellmate, a man named John Matthews, who was a hitman. Matthews had put poison in Silverstein's food and water, hoping that Silverstein would die before his trial, so he wouldn't have to testify against him. He was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 25 years in prison. But now it's time for you to speak up. Which of these crimes was the most shocking? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching. If you want to see more videos like this one, be sure to check out more content. I'll see you next time.